Okay, so again, the Lower Raritan Watershed Partnership is so pleased to welcome recent Rutgers Masters of Landscape Architecture graduate student Luke Tilton to present on his master's research, Hidden Streams, Reviving the Modified Waterways of the Lower Raritan. Luke, I'll hand it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing and then give you the controls.
Thank you. All right. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Looks great, Luke.
Okay. So, so my name is Luke Tilton. I recently completed my master's at Rutgers, and as mentioned before, my thesis title was Hidden Streams: Reviving the Modified Waterways of the Raritan. In this thesis, I explore how we can use historic maps to understand how the waterways of the Lower Raritan Watershed have been modified and how landscape architects can address these modifications. Um, and so this thesis builds off the existing collaboration between the university and the Lower Raritan Watershed Partnership, with the same title, which cataloged and digitized maps containing information about the stream networks of the Lower Raritan Watershed. Since 2019, 494 maps have been cataloged and around 10,000 stream segments have been digitized by Gavin Wagner, Colin Marks, and myself. And so before I get into my thesis, I want to talk about what kind of inspired me to pursue this topic. So coming into the master's program, I knew I wanted to do a thesis pertaining to the Raritan River, but I was not sure exactly what. And while taking a course on the theories of landscape architecture, I was introduced to this project, which is George Dacombe's renaturization of the River Aire. And so this project took what it was a channelized stream for agricultural use, which is on the left side of the screen, and turned it into a linear park for people and reestablished a natural stream flow regime using novel techniques. And I came into this process with the intent of achieving a similar outcome in the Lower and Raritan watershed. And I came to realize in this through the course of this project that this project would not be appropriate for Central New Jersey. So keeping this in mind, I want to introduce my thesis. And so a little bit of background for those that don't know, the Raritan Drainage Basin is made up of three watershed management areas, with my focus being on Watershed Management Area 9, the Lower Raritan Watershed, which includes the area that drains into the Raritan after it joins with the Millstone River. And so, for those that don't know, the Lower Raritan Watershed Partnership is a nonprofit with a mission to conserve, enhance, and restore New Jersey Watershed Management Area 9 while acknowledging the natural, environmental, historical, and cultural legacies of the Lower Raritan Watershed. And I sought to implement these guiding principles through my process. So onto my thesis, I had two research questions. How have the streams of the Lower Raritan watershed been modified over time? And how can landscape architects design to revive these streams? And so to answer these questions, I had a three-part process. First was digitization, in which I used historic maps to establish a baseline for historic stream networks of the watershed. Second was analysis, where I used this novel data set and others to determine how the Lower Raritan watershed has been modified over time, answering my first question and identifying where there are opportunities to revive these modified streams. And finally is design, where I used case studies to establish a toolbox for stream revival design and demonstrated how these techniques can be implemented in the watershed. So, in order to develop a cohesive understanding of the watershed's historic stream system, it is important to select the best map or map set to use. Through my thesis work and the work of Colin Marks and Gavin Wagner, who worked on the project before me, hundreds of maps were cataloged. Um, and in selecting which map to use as a baseline, there are three main factors to consider. First is date. So the earlier the map is created, the less modifications the streams it illustrates are, in turn presenting an opportunity to identify modifications from a more diverse range of times. Um, for this map, this is an 1781 map of Middlesex County from when the population it was just 15,000, 1.8% of what it is today. And so this represents streams that may have been modified for agricultural uses, but have been minimally altered for industry, transportation, and suburban development. But this brings us to our second factor, which is accuracy. So the reason for each map's creation, as well as the surveying techniques available at the time of its creation, determine how consistent each map will be. And so with older large-scale maps like this one, they definitely could have been drawn on horseback, making it so when they're brought into GIS, which is the current mapping technology, to compare with the hydrology, the streams that we know are the things that we know are in the same place would be off by miles due to the surveying techniques available at the time. So Sanborn fire insurance maps are commonly used in landscape architecture for historical and inventorying historical conditions due to their site detail. Um, and this accuracy and detail is due to the financial importance it held to the insurance companies which commissioned them. However, these maps cannot be used to create an inventory of the historic streams in the whole watershed because of its scope. These maps were only produced for areas that had enough buildings to require their creation, leading to incomplete coverage of the watershed. So balancing these three factors leads us to the maps that ultimately used to create the historic inventory of the watershed streams. The USGS topographical maps from New Jersey in the 1880s and 1890s all used the same 1884 survey conducted by C.C. Vermeil and George H. Cook, for whom Cook Campus is named. And so this map set is the oldest that covers the whole watershed and has a level of accuracy that allows for comparison with the current hydrologic data set. So in order to extract the stream information of these maps, we must first locate them using reference points. We know remain in the same location. So for these, the most frequently consistent reference points are the notable road intersections. For this example, I called out 3 points. However, like to properly digitize, around 12 points were used per map. So by overlaying these points with the road network within the Lower Raritan watershed, we can place them. So start with New Brunswick, then Plainfield, then Somerville, then Princeton, and finally Cassville. And we can turn off the roads and we'll have a complete map set like covering the whole watershed. And so with this, we can trace the streams, the stream center lines. And we have a new data set that represents the stream center lines as they were surveyed 140 years ago. And so by overlaying this new data set with the current data set, so with the current data sets in blue and the historic data set is in red in this example, we can begin to see where there are streams that are missing, where there's just red, and where there may be newer stream paths where there's blue lines and no red. So taking the 1884 streams, current streams, and land use data sets, I took inventory of the streams modification in the Lower Raritan watershed, with again the red streams representing the 1884 data set that are absent from the current hydrologic data set, and the blue being current and purple lines representing the current streams in urban land uses. So the current data set is made up of 960 miles of stream, and there are 121 miles of streams present in the 1884 data set that are not in the current data set. So this means that over the past 140 years, the total length of the Lower Raritan streams have decreased by 11%. In addition to this figure, 35% of the watershed's current recorded streams are in urban land uses. So this answers my first research question: how have the streams of the Lower Raritan watershed been modified over time? And the answer is quite dramatically. So in order to answer my second research question, how can we as landscape architects design to revive modified streams? I had to first identify a site to use for a demonstration. So to do this, I conducted a suitability analysis using Ian McHarg's weighted overlay method, in which you take components, rank the different parts of each feature, and combine those values to give a score to each piece of land and identify which is the most suitable for what you're trying to accomplish. And so there were five components in this analysis. So the first was from left to right modified. So these are where, in order to revive a stream, it must be altered to the point where it needs intervention to achieve an acceptable standard of performance. Land use, as this is a demonstration for techniques which could be implemented in streams, it is important to identify sites that have land use and ownership situations that are conducive to intervention. Flooding, as streams that face flooding issues due to their modifications are often the first ones that need to be addressed in the field, demonstrating how these techniques can be implemented in these areas would be ideal. Proximity to schools, calling back on the guiding principles from the Lower Raritan Watershed Partnership. When bringing people into the landscape they inhabit and steward can educate and foster a deeper connection. And schools often serve as gathering points in the community, and proximity to them allows for more people to see and learn from interventions. And upstream, in order to have a healthy river, its waters need to be cared for just as much as its banks. As these small headwaters are less often the focus of restoration efforts, the demonstration site for this would be identified closer to the headwaters. And then so within each of these components, there's an optimal condition for within the analysis for selecting a site. And so the legend beneath these features show what correlates with optimal conditions represented by green and which do not represented by beige. So again, from left to right, modified is the area that falls within 500 feet of a missing stream. Land use is open space like parks and schools. It would be optimal. Urban would be suboptimal, and wooded, barren, and wetlands would be in between. For flooding, it's what falls between in the regulatory and 100-year floodplains being optimal. And for schools, it's a 5-minute walk being optimal and 10 being slightly less optimal. And the upstream values were determined by their distance from the Raritan and South rivers, with the gradient of suitability from within a mile to over 5 miles, the latter being optimal. So putting all these features into the weighted overlay method, we get an outcome which has 1.5 million pixels, each with a value between 1 and 9. And so on this map on the right, the green pixels represent higher values and the beige represent lower values. And so of those 1.5 million pixels, only 129 fell into category 9 with this analysis. And those were all on the former path of the Cedar Brook. So going back to the 1884 survey of New Jersey, we can see Cedar Brook going through the center of Plainfield's downtown. So again, marking that path with the red line, we can overlay that with the current aerial and flooding, and we can see that where the stream disappears from the current data set, the flooding opens up into the downtown of Plainfield. So to understand what was actually going down, what was happening on this course, I visited the site. And so upon closer inspection, it becomes clear that there is still water flowing on the path of the Cedar Brook. And there are four important conditions along the current path, none of which are present in today's hydrologic data sets. So the last documented segment of the Cedar Brook runs through Cedar Brook Park before it is buried underneath Plainfield High School, as can be seen in the first picture. The brook then disappears underground for 3 miles until Milt Campbell Park, uh, where it flows through the culvert shown in the second picture. And then for the duration of the time it is in Milt Campbell Park, it is in a brick ditch as seen in the middle picture, until it is buried again and crosses Turble Road, after which it is channelized in a linear fashion between residential properties, with the exception of what is now the baseball fields near Scotch Plains Middle School. And those can be the alleyway, the residential right of way can be seen on the right. So to develop a toolbox to revive these clearly heavily modified streams, I conducted a series of case studies to extract the strategies utilized in each. So there were three main strategies prevalent across the 40 case studies. The first main strategies is stream morphology, which is making alterations to the physical form of the stream. There are five main categories of intervention, each with a plethora of different techniques to achieve that goal. So these were corridor management, which consists of establishing a healthy, robust riparian buffer to slow runoff, channel reconstruction, which entails changing the center line of a waterway to be closer to a stream's natural conditions, stream bank stabilization, which reduces erosion along the banks, in-stream measures which break up the uniformity of the stream bed in section, allowing for diversity in water conditions, creating habitat and slowing water, and stormwater management, which prevents quick accumulation of downstream water during major rain events. Representative actions are often taken in areas where modification is extreme and there are not the means to remediate the changes at the moment. And these take the form of marking former paths in the ground, interpretive signage, and models. And then the third one is interaction, which is where designs brought people closer to the water, either with play features, gathering spaces, or paths. So for each of these case studies, I noted which strategies were used by each, as well as the stream order and cost. So, as mentioned before, there were four sites that present themselves to the implementation of these different strategies. Again, starting downstream, moving up, Plainfield High School by Cedar Brook Park lies atop a presently buried stream where it is not feasible to daylight. Next is Milt Campbell Park, which has Cedar Brook in a paved ditch for its duration. And finally is the stream corridor, which splits residential properties until it reaches Scotch Plains Middle School. So for Plainfield High School, where the creek is buried and unable to be daylit, it is the best option to implement representational strategies to denote the former path of the waterway in a way that brings community members closer to the concept of the hidden stream. The ditch portion of Milt Campbell Park is best addressed with stream morphology tools, including stream bank reconstruction, riparian planting establishment, and in-stream measures like woody debris and rock clusters to break up the uniformity of the stream in section. Further up the creek, still in Milt Campbell Park, using the existing program of trails and playgrounds and incorporating those into the brook with interactive strategies, people can be brought closer to the water. And in the stream corridor where the brook runs between residential properties, stream bank stabilization and riparian planting strategies can still be implemented in ways that are compatible with the confined corridor through the implementation of strategies like crib walls and vegetated gabions that stabilize the stream bank and improve the ecology of the stream. And so where the stream corridor is adjacent to the ball fields by Scotch Plains Middle School, there's enough space to meander the stream's path and establish an upland wooded buffer, again using the existing program to bring people closer to the water. So I want to end by saying that over the past 300 years, our actions as a society within a watershed have heavily degraded its natural system. And I started off this project inspired by how George Tacombe uses landscape architecture to shape the riverscape and how I said it would not be appropriate in central New Jersey. This is because our most pressing modifications are not agricultural channelizations in rural landscapes. While this remains true, this process has taught me that there is so much we can do as designers and landscape architects to move our landscape towards what we dream for it to be and bring others close to it. So thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic, Luke. Yeah. Um, Thank you so much. So, folks, I feel free if you have a question to unmute yourself, and you can pose the question of Luke. Are there any questions here?
Hi, this is Amy. Was really impressed by all this. It's really great. Just was curious if this material is available, or will become available, so that I like just to look at some of the maps in more detail.
Um, is that I there's a paper published through the university, and I've shared the materials with the water like the LRWP. I'm not sure Heather might have a better answer for how
Oh,
that's working.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, this recording will be shared with Luke's permission. Yeah. So to those participant who participated today. So if you'd like to review the material that he shared, we can get this to you. We also have, and I'll follow up with an email to you all. A summary of what we call our hidden streams database that has a list of accessible maps and links to those maps. So some of this is not specific to Luke's material here, but to our almost 8 years worth of research around the historic hydrology or hidden streams. So I'd be happy to share that as well. And Amy, I also would like to share that we will be in um, three towns in the fall 2026, presenting on historic hydrology. We'll be in Middlesex Borough for a public library talk on August 25 and a walk on October 4th. We'll be in Edison Township at the end of October and in Perth Amboy as well. So we'll invite you all via our email newsletter to join us for those events. I don't want to distract, though, from other questions for Luke, if anyone else has a question for Luke.
I do have a question. When you were looking at the historic maps and kind of seeing where the streams were missing, did you find that it overlaid pretty pretty like consistently with areas that were prone to flooding?
Um, I think I'd say yes. I think often the what makes the missing is what kind of causes the flooding. Um, Granted that a lot of like the flood maps kind of follow the path of the stream network. So when you take away part of the stream, like the course of the stream, that's still part of the floodplain. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
I
I
have
have
a
a
question.
Sorry. Go ahead, Brenda.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Hmm. Luke, did you happen to walk Cedar Brook Park, the stream?
I did, yeah.
And did you find that it was all paved, or was any of it still coming from the lake that's there?
The what's that there, sorry?
There's a lake.
Oh, the I guess I could have explained it more clearly. So see on this map right here, the red line that's in the kind of the north of the 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 watershed, that's the Cedar Brook. So I think the lake you're talking about is the one in Cedar Brook Park, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's beneath. So this is all upstream, like all the modifications are upstream of Cedar Brook Park.
Oh, okay.
Boots on the ground component of following up with, exploration has been so key for all of our hidden streams work. And Luke, I think you were able to verify some evidence of flooding in some of these places. You were able to trace where the stream emerged, didn't disappeared, and reemerged. And I think you're walking through along the path of Cedar Brook also was inspirational for some of the interventions you identified, right? Yeah, you
Yeah.
thought you made those context appropriate.
Mhm.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
This is a great presentation, Luke, and this is the second time I see his presentation. Now I'm thinking, especially I'm inspired by the map of the Lower Raritan. And I know you concentrated on Cedar Brook, which is mostly not covered. But if I look at the map here, I find a lot of these like vein-like red paths, waterways that they precede the secondary. They are maybe elementary water flow. You see, the red is the beginning, and then the gray, and then the darker gray. This is the way the water is flowing. So, do you think any of your suggested solutions or to have a better capacity or more capacity for water and slowing down the water can be applied to these very fine red vein-like places?
Yeah, I think actually visiting the site, we realized like each of these, it's hard to tell what the story is for each of these sites. So
Mhm.
definitely for a lot of them, and some of them are more headwaters or intermittent streams that were recorded in 1884, and with like the increase of impervious surface, kind of the water never has time to accumulate because of like the landscape that's there. So there's definitely changes that could be made. I think they might, especially if you're not changing the land use completely, they'd probably have to be a little different from the ones I showed in this presentation, because I think most of these were built around interventions in urban areas or like, yeah. So,
Yeah, that was what I was thinking is that if there is a mitigation measure, a simple one that can be applied to the majority of these smaller areas, like we have to go and check on them. Maybe we can slow down the water and have something effective at the size of the watershed itself.
yeah, I think definitely. Yeah, I
And
think,
yeah, that was my thinking. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah. And any other questions or comments? Yeah, this really is a fantastic presentation. Great research, Luke. And just so thorough and inspirational for us. Any other comments? A huge thanks to you, Luke. I'm going to stop the recording now.